flags to anyone who doesn't want to challenge them.
Richard Madeley has been hosting Bad British Television for around 50 years, and in that time he squirreled away millions of pounds.
Merry Christmas, everybody!
Do you want to hear your single?
Do I?
You want to hear your single?
Yes.
Right, let's get up with his latest single.
What better potboiler populist bollocks than squirrel fish out of water documentaries that target minorities that contribute in the minority to viewing figures?
Do you make a lot of money? Are you rich?
Are you rich?
Yeah. Are you?
Richard is rich, the homeless are poor. Can they somehow find common ground?
Well, if the ice cream comes to you piled really, really high, it means it's been whipped. True Italian ice cream has to be churned.
No, but we're going to pretend to try before doubling down on beliefs that allow us to expand our property portfolio.
The thought of squatting has never filled me with anything other than repulsion. Sponger. The sponger. Drinking the wine, frying up the bacon. Well, I'm from England. See the rat running across there? But why are we greedy? Human waste. Describe it as genocide. Cashback.
Madeley begins his fact-finding mission by waking up a squatter with a description of what he smells like.
Are we okay doing this? I mean, it is their space. There's a very strong smell of fire, isn't there? And urine and fire, and I have to say it, feces. You have to put up with the rubbish that is generated from this place, the human waste.
It smells of shit.
And yet you can stand in here and see them as human beings.
Imagine that.
He did at least consider that the Lithuanians sleeping under a blanket in a corner might not appreciate their presence.
See the rat running across there? They're big, aren't they? Looking at us.
The Lithuanian, it turned out, wasn't okay with it.
Hello. Morning. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Do you speak English? Do you speak English? We're leaving now.
The squatter follows.
You speak some English?
No.
No, you don't speak English?
What you from?
Where am I from?
No.
Well, I'm from England. I'm English. I mean, most people think of squatters as, skiving, sponging scumbags. That's how most people think of them. So there are no problems.
What do you want?
How long have you been in there for? Skiving. You ask him. He wants you to be the reporter. That's fine.
Understand?
No? Sponging scumbag.
I don't know.
Thank you very much. We're done here. Thank you.
Don't give to you.
Okay.
For this man, I give.
Okay.
You can understand you.
Okay. Cool. That's how most people think of them.
I like to sort of think of us as like urban wombles. We roam the streets.
You may like to think of this.
We look for things that aren't being used and we make a use of them. At least people aren't sleeping rough.
Madeley makes no apologies for having what he calls fuck-off money.
As I split my time between homes in London and Cornwall, should I be nervous?
Madeley has luxury homes in London, Cornwall, France and Florida.
Go away on holiday, 2.4 children, and they come back and people have moved into the house and they look through the windows and they've changed the locks and they're drinking their wine and frying up the bacon. That is a public perception of squatting, isn't it?
Simple fact of the matter is it's not what we do. We look at empty buildings, whether they're houses, whether they're industrial buildings.
Having fuck-off money makes you realise there's no need to worry anymore.
Madeley meets up with a Bristol property owner outside a factory he owns and isn't using, which some people are squatting in.
Dave, do you have any sympathy for his position? That he's homeless and he's got no alternative?
These guys are in a situation, they've probably got nowhere to live.
Probably
got no money.
Probably.
And the way the law's constructed, it provides them with some sort of rights to occupy my building.
It's like any tribe. It's multi-layered and it's very, very different.
It also says Richard 2 Homes Madeley. Someone here says, not enough houses available. As I understand it, there are 1 million second homes in this country, many of them empty much of the time. Should we not be directing our attention here?
You tell me. I mean, as far as I'm aware, it's not a criminal offence to have a second home.
No.
I know that you must have broken into my house, into my property.
And your answer to that is... I'm not going to tell you.
Where the show found its strength was with Richard's personality and his nuanced, unbiased approach to the issues.
Out of interest, how many properties do you own?
That's got nothing to do with it.
Well, it has, really. And you've got several properties, so it's not like you're really suffering. You might be suffering financially, but it's not like you're not going to be able to buy a BMW next year still after this, are you?
Do you want to carry on with it? Is there any point?
Yeah, I mean, if a homeless person is going to be eloquent about his situation, then there's no point.
But I think you're not getting to the point of what it's about.
Could you explain? Could you explain that view? Because
Yes, I see it. It's greed.
Unbiased approach.
I've asked you if you've got any sympathy at all for his position, and you just call him greedy. It just seems very one-sided. I don't think people who are suffering want your sympathy. They want you to wake up and see what it is you're doing to private individuals.
This is true suffering, and I don't know when the last time any of you lot have really suffered, when you haven't had any food to eat.
Whipped.
You haven't had somewhere to sleep.
They're very nocturnal as a tribe. But why are we greedy?
Fuck-off money.
That's a real insult. I'm not greedy at all. My great ×8 grandfather was in this battle.
This was not a battle. This was a massacre. We were in the way
of them wanting the land.
You wouldn't let him into the house, would you? Why not? It's his. Would you describe it as genocide?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
I'm the direct descendant. How do you feel about me?
The only thing that we can do in this time, in this place, is attempt to live our lives in such a way that we give back to those who gave to us.
Why should somebody who maybe had an ancestor 7 or 8 generations ago, long before they were a twinkle in their great-great-great-great-grandparents' eye, my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, why should they have to pay now for what an ancient ancestor did?
You are one of the beneficiaries.
But why are we greedy? No, justify that. I've just spoken to a modern-day historian whose take on what happened here was effectively that it was a battle.
The Great Swamp Fight, it depends on your perspective, it's a Great Swamp Massacre.
So Ezekiel would have been here?
He would have been right here.
Wow. But from the Indian perspective, it was just a slaughter, and it was genocide. Having said that, that tends to be what happens when there are great population migrations. Our men valiantly sealed the fort. Tristan and his friends are homeless.
First of all, they began to take a lot of land.
And I feel sorry for them. And I can't really, I can't make a moral judgment. But it can't be right to occupy Dave's property and refuse to let him in. So it was a real pitched battle.
It was a tough fight.
Toing and froing.
It was a tough fight.
Yeah.
One of the most brutal and lopsided military encounters in all of New England's history.
This was pretty bad, though, I have to say. I wondered if Mike would have any sympathy. Do you think that squatters are rather demonised in this country, or, I mean...
No.
No, you don't?
No, I don't think they're demonised at all. I don't think they're demonised enough. It's not their property.
Conservative MP Mike Weatherly has hit back at claims he is personally responsible for death of a homeless man who froze outside an abandoned house in Essex.
Do you call them all freeloaders and anarchists?
Well, mostly they are. I'm sorry to say this, but they are. You've got to separate out homeless people from squatters, and they were not trying to, demonise homeless people at all.
Gauntlet had previously had trouble with the police when he tried to break into an abandoned bungalow for shelter.
These are internet-savvy, well-organised people who are just taking what's not theirs.
And apparently took the decision to sleep outside the property in order to avoid breaking the law. He froze to death overnight.
And are you confident that this law, when it comes into force, will solve the problem, as you see it?
If it does solve it, I'll be delighted.
More than 1,200 people in the UK died while homeless in 2021. The number of homeless people who died in 2022 was 1,313.
1,474 homeless people died in 2023.
Every citizen in this country should be delighted that when they go home tonight, they're not actually worried about whether their property is being occupied by a squatter or not.
It's the greatest fear every citizen with a second home has.
A local lady died in my constituency, and when her family came down to take possession of her house, squatters were in there. That had to stop. And I just spoke to the police, and they said the law has completely changed the position on residential squatting. It doesn't happen anymore, and we don't have the heartache that we saw then, which is a good result.
Early day motion on commercial squatting, tabled 14th January 2013. Owners of commercial premises should have the same rights as owners of residential premises when it comes to removing squatters. Primary sponsor, Mike Weatherly.
Madeley then visits some squatters in a commercial building in London. Their spokesperson is a smart-looking, well-spoken woman, which does make it harder to vilify her.
Shall I show you upstairs?
Yeah. How many floors you got here?
Owners of empty buildings, they mess it up so that no one wants to live in it. Everything has been stripped. I think this is just a number on a balance sheet.
For all the difficulties, the fact that you are actually living in a place that I couldn't afford, it's a blow struck, isn't it?
I was in an abusive relationship. I didn't have enough money to rent. All the advice agencies said I wasn't eligible for help because I'm a single person. Squatting has been a lifeline to escape domestic violence.
And I feel happy that I'm taking something that's been laid waste and turning it into a home for up to 20 people who wouldn't have anywhere else to go otherwise.
There seemed to be plenty of food, and to my discomfort, they share just the one toilet.
She works! The program feels like it missed an opportunity to really present something new.
You can't film me pissing. What are you talking about?
Why not? You can't help but think that we caught a glimpse of a feast and ended up with a cheese sandwich.
How would you feel if you were to walk out your front door tonight, or your temporary front door, and somebody passing by goes, "Sponger, you're sponger."
Someone
sponger. You're sponger.
For a Greek shipping magnate who's registered in a tax haven of Liberia to keep this property empty for 7 years, I feel no shame for turning this into a space where people can live.
Sponger. You're sponger. Working as freelancers, they say they can't afford to pay regular rent. So squatting's the only way that they can survive in London and pursue their careers. You suffer for your lifestyle, don't you?
More bread!
They may live rent-free, but seeing them scavenge thrown-away food made me feel sympathy for them.
Incredible.
And angry at what seems like an obscene waste.
I don't think people who are suffering want your sympathy.
Tristan told me that he doesn't claim any benefits. I discovered that's a point of honour for many squatters.
Why is that?
Sponger. You're a sponger. She's in her 50s, I think she's about the same age as me, and she's a squatter. If I'd thought when I was 20-odd that I would be squatting when I was in my 50s, I'd probably cut my wrists, you know?
The average age at death was 45 for men and 43 for women.
I'm 56. Okay, is this your little garden, or is it communal?
It's communal.
Okay. Yeah. So if you could somehow summon up the young Dory, how would you explain to her what's happened to you? You'd have been horrified, actually, wouldn't you? Do you ever wake up and sometimes flip back into the Dory that used to be and think, what if I'd stayed like that? You know, I'd be living in a big house, I'd have maybe 3 cars in the drive.
3 cars? Heaven.
To me, the thought of squatting is just, well, it's unthinkable. Can't even conceive of doing it. I can't imagine doing it.
And it's that level of understanding that makes Richard Madeley such a fantastic investigative journalist.
And 9/11 did change everything. You're just talking over us.
Do you want me to ask
and you won't answer the questions.
I'm asking you which question you're asking me to answer.
The question is
it
very
the insurance
simple.
one or the tax
God,
one?
stop playing games. The question is really simple. Why don't cyclists...
I'm not playing games.
I'd spent weeks travelling around Britain, and it was clear that the issues surrounding squatting are complicated.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Further complicating the issue is the only person who appears on Richard's side that it's possible to feel sorry for.
Lindsay Richardson told me that the housing association she works for found Mary a flat so she could escape her violent home life. But on the very day she was due to move in, a squatter got there first.
Madeley appears to already have a good idea of the story he wants to tell, so proceeds to say how lovely the flat he would never live in is.
Yeah, nice view into the square. Yeah, it would have been sweet for you. What do you think about this new legislation where, from September, if somebody does that again, they'll be a criminal and the police can come and arrest them?
I don't want anyone to go to jail for this offence.
While councils do everything they can to prevent homelessness, the shortage of affordable housing makes this increasingly difficult, and a proportion of prisoners released will become homeless.
You end up getting into trouble again deliberately to get put back inside.
Do you think it'll make things much easier and cheaper for you?
The total costs could run between 316 million and 790 million over 5 years. This compares with the £350 million in savings the Ministry of Justice hopes to make by cutting the legal budget.
Until we actually see it in place, we're not going to know actually how it's going to work.
Everybody's saying, well, wait and see. But theoretically...
Just agree with him.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think this new law, which will criminalise that kind of behaviour, has to be a good thing, because it means that the police can come around, they can winkle him out of the property, and Mary can move in.
It's great he's found Mary so he can end the programme completely unchanged by the squatters who seemed reasonable while still giving the illusion of narrative motion to his documentary, and he cares so much for Mary. He seems to get her name wrong. It's been dubbed over in post.
And Mary can move in. You must accept, surely, that there are some squats which are obviously illegal, but also damaging, where houses are badly damaged. You know, they don't know how to take care of them, and they cause a lot of mess, and then they move on. You'd accept that, wouldn't you? I mean, you can't say that all squatting is good.
I think there's absolutely no evidence that squatters are any more likely to cause antisocial behaviour than ordinary tenants.
You're trying to find a home for yourself. It just doesn't make sense, all these horror stories that the Daily Mail love to come out with, you know. It's just generally from the squatting networks that we're involved with.
Richard Madeley's enduring appeal has earned him not just fans in the millions, but a global property empire 5 strong, notching a combined estimated value of nearly £12 million.
Richard drives down the dual carriageway in a Jaguar, reflecting on what an incredibly important programme he's made, and in an effort to appear fair and balanced says you can't label squatting simply. It's a complex world these people live in. It doesn't take kindly to an easy, simple label. And then it ends.
Whipped